My name is Lisa Karn. I'm the Executive Director and Founder of Fragments of Hope. We are here at Yoli's over the water in Placencia, and we are trying to have a hybrid meeting. So we have people coming in now. It's end of the day here in Placencia. And we wanted to honor the folks on Zoom and start sort of on time. So thank you for your patience with our technical issues. We moved to a big screen TV versus a flimsy screen that we used to show in our meetings. So we're trialing that out with the late afternoon sun. And just for people online to know, there's not a lot of great conference spaces in Belize in general, but much less in our villages, to hold these types of meetings during the day where you can show a good screen and still have your turnout come out at night. So I thank everybody that took their time out today to come out tonight, this evening, this afternoon. So the agenda for tonight, this is our 12th annual general meeting, is that we are expanding our team. I hear my echo. Does everyone else hear me echoing?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
That's okay. Yeah, no big deal.
But I can't see if I move. And then I wanted to give the year in review, which is actually, I should have changed this, more like November through October, November 2024 through October 2025, because we had our last AGM last year in October. And then sort of the field activities, the acknowledged changes that we've done, and then our grants, our local board, our future plans, and hopefully some feedback and Q&A time. So we're looking at a little chart here. Not a whole lot has changed over the years, but some definitely good changes across the second line. We have two boards. We're registered in Belize since 2013 and registered as a 501c3 in the US since 2015 with different boards and as me as the crossover. And then we now have, since 2023, we received a grant from Belize Fund. And so we have a few part-time employees, and they're highlighted in green: the operations manager, the executive administrator. Going across the top, I'm skipping the order, the program coordinator and accountant is Fiona. And then most recently, we brought on Mercedes Requena as a marine research technician under our CORDAP grant, which I'll be explaining later, all of our different grants. And then the bright green is a brand new identified person, Rubier Ramirez. He's not actually on our payroll yet, but we just conducted several interviews and he will be our GIS expert under the CORDAP grant. What I have highlighted in pink is what we still want to have happen. So we still want to have happen an activities coordinator, maybe / outreach. Maybe we get that under a future grant I will describe towards the end of the top. I don't think Glover's Reef is in our immediate future. Just turn it off. And then in the bright yellow is that we do have funding for this next position. And we were kind of deciding what that position should be. And we are leaning towards a data management person. So that is becoming more and more popular with NGOs. We are sitting on a lot of data. We are trying to back it all up and get it organized. But I understand from Florida and other NGOs here in Belize, a lot of people are moving to this position to have somebody specifically to help you keep track of all your data. And so here's Mercedes highlighted. She's here with us this evening. For those of you that haven't met her yet, she's in the room, as well as Ale Cancino. They're both from Kikaka. He came on in 2023 and Mercedes just this year. Is the audio not good? Okay, I hear myself echoing. So I wanted to just, talk about reality for a minute. It's been a rough few years. We are seeing these headlines nonstop about the global bleaching events. The climate predictions are not looking good. It's supposed to stay hot for the next 5 years, and even predicted is one more year surpassing 2024, which was our hottest year to date. Then many of you may have seen that, I hear myself. Many of you may have seen that Florida just released some publications saying that their acroporids, the staghorns and the elkhorns are functionally extinct. And then most recently, of course, all these headlines that the corals have reached their tipping point and that's it. So there are a number of other common Caribbean species that are now on the IUCN Red List as critically endangered or endangered. So it's been a lot of dread news out there, but we hope to counter some of that with some good news this evening. Mercedes helped me with some images to let you know, I'm going to talk about some bleaching data right now, but to let you know that there's a lot of folks now involved in the bleaching monitoring. And later on, I'll be highlighting the knowledge exchanges and trainings that we've worked on. We've done 3 in the last 2 years to really get more Belizeans equipped with the skills to go out there and keep track and monitor what's really happening on our reef in real time. Is it glary for you guys? Can you see? So these are complicated graphs because we looked at the line graphs, they weren't much better, but this is a lot of data that we have from 2008 to 2025 for southern sites, specifically near Placencia. So these are some nearshore sites, Laughing Bird, and then to the right of the graph is offshore sites at Silks. And the most important thing to realize is by year, in color codes, again, I apologize for not doing better with the colors, but I left in black that you can clearly see October 2024 was by far the worst bleaching event that we've had in all these years of data. So you can see those long bar graphs, long black marks over 80% from last year, October. These are surveys done on sites where 200 corals are monitored, and that is the percent of those 200 corals that are partially bleaching or fully bleaching. And then we have all this data to sort through, and then I'll get to some mortality slides because a lot of people have been asking, you know, what is the mortality? Because we all go out there, we saw a lot of reef die over the last 2 years. So I'll try to break that down for you. So again, these are busy slides. This is just to highlight the fact that since 2023, June, when the bleaching started really early that year, we've been doing monthly monitoring since then. Prior to 2023, we only did bleaching monitoring like September, October, November, sort of the peak months when bleaching was the highest for Belize. But so we've adjusted our program and we've been out there every month monitoring minimum of 16 sites near Placencia. Again, the x-axis here is the Inner Keys, Laughing Bird, Moho is a added site, and then Silk Keys and Whale Shark and Nortwall are in Gladden Spit. So from left to right, it's shallow and near shore to offshore and deeper reefs. And so you can see that bleaching never really went away, even though this year is not as horrendous as the last 2 years, it never really went away. Now this is South Water Key Marine Reserve. We've been monitoring 4 sites there since around 2016, 2017. And this is just this year's data, again, just to illustrate the bleaching never really went away, even though this year, 2025, is not as drastic or horrible as 2023 and 2024, we still have bleaching on our reefs. Then more recently, we started doing a few sites in Turnef, Atoll Marine Reserve, and later on, I'll have a map to show where all these sites are. But again, the black is highlighted, again, apologies for the color, but the black is highlighted as, again, emphasizing October 2024 was the worst bleaching event that we've seen since we've been documenting this in Belize. Another thing that's happened and has been ongoing is stony coral tissue loss disease. So that was in Florida from like 2014, 2015, showed up in Belize 2019 in northern Belize, and swept its way down fairly predictably from north to south through 2022, 2023. But we had not seen it in what we call the Inner Keys. Again, a map will pop up soon. So Laughing Bird and all these keys that are different in southern Belize, we had not seen this disease until this May. So suddenly it is here at Laughing Bird Key. The pillar corals, which are pictured, are one of the most susceptible species and definitely not many left in the Caribbean. This one in particular, I'm highlighting as a success story for the moment because it looks as though after 2 treatments, the lesions have stopped. And we did not see these kind of results with all the pillar corals that we treated from north to south in previous years. So we're hopeful. We'll find out next year, I guess, but right now it looks like the lesions stop. And then in general, it's been spreading at Laughing Bird, where now over 80 coral colonies have been treated since June. And it's mostly the symmetrical brain coral, and the abbreviation for that is PSTR, which is the Latin name for Pseudodiploria strigosa. This graph, and I'll be talking about the diver-based mosaics in a minute, is just kind of showing mortality due specifically to stony, just take it off, to stony coral tissue loss disease. Tobacco Key is is located in Saltwater Key Marine Reserve, so a little bit north of Placencia. And again, the disease showed up there earlier than it did down south where we are, a little bit further south. And so the declines that you're seeing in the coral cover here are mostly directly related to the stony coral tissue loss disease. And I just shared it today because we have some colleagues that are really interested in looking at the photomosaic data from when stony coral tissue loss passed through. This image is, if y'all can see it well, is kind of a graphic image of the state of staghorn right now. So you see a tiny bit of living coral and a lot of dead coral. And I'm gonna try to quantify for you that as much as we could. So these are results from our diver-based mosaics at Moho Key. Moho Key is an unprotected key just north of Laughing Bird, where we began reef restoration or replenishment efforts in 2015. So the graph you're looking at here is, you're looking at the total percent live coral cover on the y-axis. And we have 3 plots that are about 100 meters squared where we do this quantified photomosaics. We swim back and forth and stitch together so we get one large image, and then we use another software to quantify the change in coral cover. And all the sites that we have where we do this, we do not add any more corals after we originally outplant. So what we're looking at over time is the natural change in coral cover over time, just by these corals fragmenting and growing. And you can see that even through 2023, which are in the green colors, March and November, we did it twice because of that bleaching event in 2023. They were not that badly affected. They were even still growing in 2023. However, 2024, as I mentioned, was worse. And so when we went back in March 2025, you can see the live coral cover has now dropped to less than what we started with. And that is primarily due to the die-off of the staghorn and the hybrid that we put out there, and a few other of the species affected by the bleaching events. So that is just one way of looking at mortality. When people ask, how serious is it? It's serious. However, there's some good news still, and so we want to highlight the good news. On the left-hand side of the screen, these are wild colonies of staghorn at Hatchet Key on the left-hand side, Harvest Key on the left-hand side, which is where the cruise ships now come. And we knew this staghorn was there like 10 years ago and thought it was gone, and we recently checked it again and it's thriving. And so this is good news that there are still survivors or winners after these 2 dread events. And on the right-hand side is kind of the opposite scenario, because this is all the way out at Gladden Spit. For those of you that know, and again, a map will be coming, it's about 26 miles from Placencia, and it's in the Back Reef area. And although it was affected by the bleaching event, this is a recent photograph and it's still hanging on. Then the hybrid is, the common name is the fused staghorn. It's the Acropora prolifera, the hybrid between the 2, the elkhorn and the staghorn. And we have this wonderful winner that came from a patch near Loggerhead Key that we've now spread out in all these different sites, and it's just doing great. So this is what I'm trying to highlight, is that there are still some winners and survivors out there. On the left-hand side is at Whippery Key, for those that our keys, and on the right-hand side is at Tobacco Key Nursery, which is in Saltwater Key Marine Reserve. This is a complicated slide talking about the mortality for the elkhorn coral. So the elkhorn corals are easier to go and count, where you can still sort of count them versus the staghorn that turn into these large fields. And what we're looking at here is when we looked at South Silk Key, I'll talk about South Silk Key and Moho Key only and not Middle Key for right now. And we were able to go and count the actual elkhorn colonies out there, most of which were from us. And so post 2023 at South Silk Key, there were 358 elkhorn colonies. Maybe 11 to 16 were wild, and the rest that we had outplanted since 2019. And post 2023, which on your screen means 2024, South Silks, there was only 4% mortality, and we were thrilled. However, flash forward to post 2024, which on your screen is South Silks 2025, the mortality shot up to, my screen is cut off, I think it's 96%. So a total flip, like 96%. So that is the dread news. So actually, I think there were like exactly 7 living elkhorn corals at South Silk Key in 2025 when we surveyed, and none of them were wild. They were all the ones that we had put out there. Moho was a little better off. Moho Key had 498 colonies. So the numbers on the graph are actual numbers of colonies. You know, the green is good, red is bad. And so post 2023 at Moho Key, there was 16% mortality, and screen is cut off, but I think it's around 73 or 78% mortality post 2024. So a little better than Silks. More was out there than at Silks. We're still in discussions about wave action and shading, and besides the genetics that may be lending reasons why some corals are doing better than others. Now I'm moving into an example of what we call time series photographs. So we originally started with corals transplanted to Laughing Key in 2006 as a trial experiment. And they lived on the reef for 18 years, and we were thrilled. They made it through 2023, but none of them survived through 2024. But the example I'm illustrating here is how hard it is to share this. And so we're working with different partners now to figure out how best we can illustrate the data that we have over the long term with the time series. So this is the same fragment that was outplanted in 2006, and you're seeing time series usually around October because we were monitoring for bleaching, and you can also see the growth. And so then, you know, you run out of room with so many years, and then it bleached, it didn't do well, it came back in early 2024. You can see there's some partial mortality on the flat or exposed parts of the colony, and see how large it had gotten. And we do know that it spawned a few years too. But then it did not make it through 2024. In fact, none of the original transplants from 2006 at Laughing Bird survived 2024's bleaching event. Again, trying to flip it, there are some survivors and winners. So these photographs are at Laughing Key. On the left-hand side is an older outplant, probably from around 2013. And you can tell just looking at it that like it's been scattered around by storms. And so what that means for us is when we're keeping track of genetics, we still have to budget and pay for and go back and re-genotype to make sure we know who is who out there. Because after so many years on the reef and storms come, no matter how meticulous you are about keeping track of where you put things, nature moves them around. On the right-hand side is also at Laughing Key National Park, and those little guys were just put out in 2023, and these are from one of our winning elkhorn genets that I'll be talking more about in a minute. Now I'm at Moho Key, which is again just north of Laughing Bird and unprotected, and on the left-hand side were little corals that were outplanted this year in 2025, and they are thriving and looking okay. And on the right-hand side is a much older coral that we outplanted at Moho. Remember, there was around 51 survivors at Moho. And so you don't see too much old mortality on that. And this is what we're focusing on. Who's winning, who's surviving, how do we propagate and locate, how do we locate more of these and propagate more of these, and then where are we gonna put them? So as I mentioned, what I call the donors, you can see where the white bits where they've been fragmented. So since 2017, we no longer put the species in the nursery. We directly outplant by microfragmenting. So that means taking less of 10% of the donor coral, and then we fragment it into little pieces and directly outplant it. And that's been working really well, minus the bleaching event, everywhere we've done it from north to south in all of the habitats. And so now we're revisiting and finding some new, this is, I think one of these is at Jeremy Reef and one of these is at Bullocks, which used to be Colson Key. So sorry, people just we name things based on who has stuff around and, names change all the time. But we have the coordinates, so we know where they are. Now moving north, on the left-hand side, this was a surprising winner at Coral Gardens, which is an unprotected large reef in between Hulchan and Kikaka Marine Reserve that another colleague has been studying for years, but primarily for staghorn. And all that staghorn died, but when we were out there checking it out, we found these lovely large palmatas still living. On the right-hand side is the nursery at Kikaka, which those are relatively new nurseries since 2020. But this genet that's surviving here came from southern Belize, that came from all the way down near shore by Placencia and survived both bleaching events and is thriving and now been spread around in the different nurseries in northern Belize. And then this is a wild survivor that Ale Cancino is here with us tonight as well, that he found when he was surveying everything post both bleaching events. And so that's wild. We sampled it to make sure, we're not sure if it's a hybrid or staghorn because you see the ends look a little different, right? So I think we've sampled that. And now I'm moving to Saltwater Key Marine Reserve. And on the left-hand side are outplants of staghorn that we put out so many years ago. Again, we needed to re-genotype them to make sure we know who they are. And on the right-hand side is wild elkhorn near Tobacco Key. So again, I'm just trying to emphasize that not all is lost. It's just it's not great, but we're trying to highlight, where the winners are and figure out what we can do in the future. There was a recent trip done by Fragments of Hope to Turnef. TMR is Turnef Atoll Marine Reserve in October last month. And so these photographs are both wild winning survivors of elkhorn coral in Turnef. On the left-hand side is a staghorn patch that was reported by a fisher using EcoMar's new platform called Belize Barrier Reef Watch, where fishers and guides can report on not just corals, but any charismatic megafauna or anything cool in the ocean. But of course, we pay attention to the corals. And so we've already benefited from their reports. And we want to applaud that effort and hopefully and continue them to encourage them to keep doing that because it's amazing. So the team was able to go out there, get the coordinates and genotype the stand that had both elkhorn and staghorn that was previously unreported by TASA or us. And then on the right-hand side is the Calabash Key table nursery in Turnef. And those thriving corals came from a patch where the donor corals are all dead. So we have a lot to figure out. Yeah, we have a lot to figure out because we're asking ourselves, is it current? Is it shading? What is it about these little microenvironments where some corals survive, where they came from did not survive? So there's a lot of work going on. This is just thrown in for those people that keep asking us about numbers. I keep trying to explain that the numbers are kind of meaningless when we outplant. But again, we did not outplant in 2024 because we knew the writing was on the wall. It would be worse in 2023. But when we saw the press release about the 5 years prediction of this temperatures not going lower, we said, okay, well, 2020, we can't wait anymore. We have to work with what we have. And so we just did a little bit in 2025, and we will be doing more next year and working with our colleagues and the national programs here to figure out where best to put them because we can't put them everywhere. There's the map I promised so long ago. So you can see all of the sites that we have throughout Belize, and all the different MPAs. And then if you look on the left-hand side, there's the map of Belize. On the right-hand side is a map of Laughing Key National Park, and all those numbers and dots are just chronological orders of when we outplanted corals at Laughing Key National Park. And then that is tied into like Excel sheets and field notes and tons of other data. And so I'll be talking about a new grant that we received recently with partners where we hope to coalesce all this data and come up with a better way of analyzing and looking at all of our long-term data and then making better prediction tools. So this map on the left, for example, is for you, Zoe. Ones that we have to update. It's from 2020 with just the palmata, the elkhorn corals as donors. And we need to update all of these maps now with who survived which year, who's still out there, and color code it and get that all organized. For those of you that don't know what the word genet means, these corals are animals, and so they can sexually reproduce. And so you have different individuals within the same species. And one of the things we're learning is our naming system is not working well. We need a new naming system. So I have, of course, named all these corals by sort of where they were or when they were outplanted. And again, I apologize for the color issues, but I just quickly went through, and everything in red, I think, has not survived. What we're looking at here is just the name of where the elkhorn donor came from on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side of the graph, on the right-hand side is 3 outplant sites at Moho, Laughingbird, and South Silks. And so you can see that we had quite a bit of good genetic diversity, meaning lots of different individuals up until 2024. So for example, we may have had over 30 different genets at Laughing Key, but now we may be down to like 10-ish. Again, we're re-genotyping. And so this is one of the crises for keeping our reefs alive, is that we need to like find and locate more and more of these different genets to keep that genetic diversity alive, because only when they spawn and procreate sexually do you have evolution and adaptation to our changing conditions. So this is a summary slide of trying to explain what we're trying to put together under the CORDAP grant, which I will highlight in a minute. The pictures you're looking at here is what we call a donor coral. So that's the mother or donor that we took less than 10% from. And on the right-hand top screen, those were outplanted at Laughing Key in 2023. And on the bottom is just a static map of trying to show that some of the survivors are in the nearshore areas by Placencia, and the arrows just indicating where we're moving them. And so I had a colleague I stole this slide from here that did a little animation and labeled it a little bit better to try to illustrate, that we're moving these corals around to different places. And I think for our future work, we'll be moving them even further. As I mentioned, we've already moved some from down south to Kikaker. And so I think we'll be moving them further and further to ensure that we have that genetic diversity and that we're not just moving the same survivors around back and forth, if that makes sense. Moving on to another data set that we do both drone and diver-based orthomosaics. And so in Laughingbird, we've been doing this since 2019. We have a few other sites, both keys and then patches that we do, and also Monkey River we just repeated. We've been doing that since 2018, not for corals, but for their shoreline. But we don't have any of those really annotated yet, but I'll be speaking to who's going to help us with that in a later slide. And now in Belize, for the diver-based mosaics, we have 19 existing, and this year we added 2 more. We added 1 in Northern Belize at Coral Gardens, and 1 at Saltwater Key Marine Reserve Channel, where everybody snorkels, because our plans are next year to start moving some of the non-acropores into that channel, because that was greatly affected by the stony coral tissue loss disease as well as the bleaching event. And it's very popular touristy area, and we want to just try to bring a little bit of life back to that as a trial experiment and follow that over time. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we did publish on the drone orthomosaics, that publication is out there, and using it to map with Steve Schill that showed us how to do it, how to map the shallow reefs with the drone. This example probably doesn't show well on Zoom or even here on the TV, because really you need to be able to zoom in. But what this is the final product of a diver-based mosaic, the one we do underwater. And why I was so thrilled to see this one is that it's at Calabash Key in Turnef. And I'm sure you can't see it well on the screen or Zoom, but there's actually living corals that we outplanted in 2018. And that was just such a relief after seeing so much not making it past the last 2 years. So again, we'll be looking at more details about why at Calabash Key. Is it the temperature? Is it the water movement? But things are definitely doing better at Calabash than Blackbird Key, for example, also in Turnef. And these are just some photographs that Mercedes put together of people actually doing the work out there. Now I'm moving to some slides from the Strong Coast project, and we used this last year, but just to give you reference, that we were asking for help on how to measure shoreline protection, because we kept saying all these years we were planting in the shallows to help protect the shoreline, but we had no way to actually measure it. Then I have some other photos here I'll be talking about real-time sensors and weather station. But just to let you know, we had Lyndon Cheek, who's now graduated with her PhD, put in these underwater wave attenuation loggers to answer that question that we asked: is the replenished reef protecting the shoreline? And so, long story short, in this slide, she was looking at data collected between April and October, and also trained the FOH team to go out there. So the FOH team is now, retrieving these loggers and uploading the data. But the good news is that we were able to show that with this short data set, that the replenished reefs were reducing the wave energy by up to 66%. And we never had that quantitative data before. So that's a big plus for us. And so we appreciate the graduate students that helped us with that. This is still with Strong Coast now. It also requests, there's a weather station that's still at Laughing Bird as we speak. And again, the FOH team has been trained and goes out there and downloads the data and keeps track of this. And one day, if they have internet, right, Dr. Truss, then it will be real time, and we could actually get real time wind speed, wind direction, all of this stuff that you see on the slide. In theory, would be real time if there was internet out at Laughing Bird, but it's currently downloaded every month. What we did get from the University of Miami, again under Strong Coast, was the SOFAR buoy sensors. And so those do work real time. So we can get wind speed and direction and temperature. And you can see how they look, the little yellow guy there that has solar panels on it. And then it has a support buoy, but the support buoy, does it show there? Maybe later. The support buoy looks like a big white and blue buoy that we all tie up to. And so even though we love this opportunity, they're on loan, we've had to redeploy 3 times in 1 year because everybody ties up to those buoys. And they're not, we mark them, we put it on social media, but the rangers don't always have a boat. So anyway, it's kind of been expensive, and there's been some lag time and some data missing but the good thing is they talk to the satellite, so we immediately get a message saying, hey, that last one was on its way to Monkey River, just drifting, and so we could go out and get it, yeah. Referring to the knowledge exchanges or training, we did switch in the last 2 years to focus, as I mentioned earlier, on the coral bleaching and disease monitoring, because we noticed that as a nation, we have the national network, National Coral Reef Monitoring Network, consisting of all the marine NGOs and Fisheries Department and University of Belize. And we have a standard protocol, but we noticed from 2023, which was that first awful bleaching year, that the protocol was not being used in a standardized way. And so the data was not standardized. And so we've shifted our focus, and we've now done 3 trainings, including through March or workshops, to share that knowledge of how you conduct this protocol in a standardized way, as well as the Coral ID, and including like the Paul Human Coral ID book and other training materials and slates and things like that. And so I think we're at close to between 30 and 40 Belizeans trained, and hopefully we'll be doing another one. We will be doing another one probably next time in Key Conquer. The last 3 were in Placencia with stakeholders from different NGOs and the Tour Guide Association here. And I think The next one will be in Key Cocker, and I think there will be more to come. Oh, Mercedes gonna take over now, yes?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mercedes. You got one? How do I turn this off?
You're using the same one. Don't pick it up. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. Oh, yeah, it's on. Talk. Say something.
I'm alive.
You're alive. Yeah. I'll take yours off. Okay.
Mercedes, thank you, Mercedes.
All right, so just to highlight a few of the other field activities we've been doing when you see us going out to sea. We did do a spawning trip. We went out to Saltwater Key, and we did Saltwater Key because they were observed. Okay,
Talk.
okay, am I good now?
Yeah, supposed to be good.
Oh, good.
Put two at in and
This one, I just not hold it, okay.
the other way. The other way.
Okay, so what I was saying is we have some other field work that we've been working on in 2025. This summer, we went out to Saltwater Key where we knew there were some survivor elk horns and we wanted to try to monitor for spawning. And we also knew that we had staghorn out on the tables there. So we did, I believe it was a 9-day trip out to Saltwater Key. And we did observe spawning in a outplanted staghorn and then in some wild elkhorn around the Saltwater Key channel. The corals that spawn, we did collect genetic samples from them, and we've also collected samples from across Belize. So we've been collecting samples in northern Belize. We did a little bit of sampling in Ternate, and we've been doing sampling down here, like Lisa said. Sometimes we have to resample because of how things move around and break naturally. When we do our monitoring, so the first picture is the spawning that we monitored of staghorn. And then the following day, we went back and collected a genetic sample of that staghorn. And we've submitted our observations of spawning monitoring to the Caribbean Coral Spawning Network database. So that will be going live on the AGRA website soon. It's not, all the information isn't fully there, so that map is currently being updated with the 2025 data. Like I said, we also did some genetic sampling in other places. So this is sampling that we did. The first picture is at Caribou. The middle one is that wild, maybe Ace or maybe April that Ali found at Key Cocker South Channel. And the last picture is staghorn that we sampled again around the Caribou Key area. We also have to do regular maintenance, and we do it all the time, but it's still work that we're going out there to do. So there's the first one is Vic changing out a temp logger, and then cleaning up the ropes of Monique measuring, taking the linear extension so we can keep track of growth. And then that's Mark refragging a rope, an older rope that needed to be refragged so that it didn't break.
You're off the hook now. Thank you, Mercedes. I was trying to break it up so it's not just me talking, but just a review of the conferences, workshops, events and things. Probably not everything is included here, like Ali often goes to Belize City for several meetings we get invited to give talks to. But going back, we had the Refutures in Mexico last December 2025, a huge event. It's turned into like over 4,000 people. We had also sponsored by Strong Coast, the Intro to ArcGIS in February. Dr. Ileana Bombs and I, who I'll talk about more in a minute, participated in the Coral Restoration Consortium Q&A, like what to do with all this bleaching last May. And Victor participated with that with me as well. And then we had a International Science Council policy brief issued with our case study. I'm not sure where that goes or how far that goes, but it's out there, June 2025. And then, of course, I have some slides from Strong Coast to share all the different events they've been doing here and Kikaker. And then, of course, all the regular media, donor, and funder site visits. And then Monique Vernon volunteered to go on a B2B podcast, which we shared on social media. Does anyone remember the name of that? It's something about tea and talk or something. Huh?
Tea Talk and Tourism.
Tea Talk and Tourism. And so that is on social media, and she did a great job. And then we have 2 WWF funded videos that I will not share on Zoom, but when we're done with this talk, I'll share here on the TV. They didn't show that well on Zoom, but they're shared on social media. And then we most recently completed an online workshop under the CORDAP grant, which I will get to in a minute, for practitioners in the Caribbean with around 55 people, 2-hour online workshop, again, trying to find out what other people need so that under our project, which I'll talk about more in a minute, we're not just doing Fragments of Hope needs, but needs for other coral restoration practitioners. And that's just a group photo down at the main dock of, I think, the February Intro to GIS workshop. And then the Refutures, I was hoping Vic would be here or someone to talk about it, but I think it was great. It was Victor's first presentation in an international setting. I think it was Natasha's first international regional event. I know Monique has been to several for us before, and there was just a whole slew of partners from both Strong Coast and then other colleagues that presented on or about or with Fragments of Hope data. So there was a big presence there last December. They are having another one at the same venue in December 2026. Now, this is from Strong Close, and Maya, I just have to make fun. You always make fun of my busy PowerPoints, but wow, this is a busy slide, yeah. But I guess we get the point. The point is a lot of people came out to a lot of different meetings, and I think that's the point, right? So there's been a lot of stuff going on. And again, these were public meetings announcements on this slide. And then what we like about this is all the PhD and master's students. I think it's 2 PhD and 1 master's students that completed their work and studies in partnership with Fragments of Hope and Strong Coast in the Placencia area. We just love that. We think that's great. And I don't know if I should play this video because it's got like a lot of music in the background, but we wanted to just highlight Deani Williams. She completed her internship from Independence Junior College with Fragments of Hope this year. It's not always easy for us to do student internships because we are based in Placencia and move around based on the weather, but she happens to reside in Placencia. So it made it easier for her to be able to go out when the team was going out. And this is also shared on social media, so I won't hit the button now with the loud music, but it was just a mirage or a collage of images from her going out several months with Fragments of Hope. Oh, there it goes. Yep, sorry. So moving on to our new grad students that we have Kat, Kat H.
Hauser.
How is
Hauser.
your-
How is
your- how is
She's a
your-
PhD student, and she is looking at, she wants to look at really like the nitty gritty, the micro, like how the elkhorn corals are growing in a detailed kind of way and integrate that with some of the work that we're doing. And so she has a few more years to go still, and she got her own research permit to work with us. And then we have Ariana, who's originally from TNT, Trinidad and Tobago. And sorry, Kat came here last June and she'll be here next month. And then Ariana, where'd she go? Ariana was just here last month and will be coming again soon. And she's doing her master's degree at UC Santa Cruz. And as I mentioned earlier, I hinted she's going to help us with our gap with annotating all the drone orthomosaics. So she also got her own research permit for that. And she's also going to help us in working towards finalizing Belize's National Coral Reef Resilience Plan. And that's why Zoe's here with us too as well to work with Mercedes, because there's a draft document, but we still need to do some more, a lot more work to iron it out with better input. Fee, can I put you on the spot, or you want me just to run through it and then if anyone have questions or? I knew you were gonna say that. So Fiona is our accountant wizard. It's been such a big difference to have her. And so what we're looking at is from QuickBooks, profit and loss, which whatever makes no sense to me as a nonprofit. But so you're looking at Belize dollars, which are 2 to 1 US. So our income, and this is from the time frame from November 2024 through October 2025, so almost a year. So the income was 895,000 change Belize, expenses were 698, spent locally in Belize. Guess that battery, oh, there it goes. Around 670,000 or 88% of the income. And then on the Placencia Peninsula, she wanted me to point out, if anyone was paying attention from last year's AGM, the number has actually gone up, but the percentage has gone down. Why? Because now we have Kikaka and we have field trips in Kikaka and people in Kikaka. So it's still being spent in Belize, but now there's money being spent in Kikaka communities as well as Placencia. So then we have all these different bank accounts, and you see Belize dollar money on the left and US, which is just half of Belize dollar on the right. And these are the bank balances as of 31 October 2025. We also had another colleague, one of Dr. Trott's graduate students, and her team, this is a draft, but she was looking at our finances for over 10 years. So you may not see it well if you're here in person. I couldn't change it because it was a PDF, but you're looking at finances from 2013 through 2024. And they looked at all of this data that we have with our finances, and they found that on average, we are spending around 81% of our grant funds back in Belize, which I think is super important for people to note. Of course, computers, cameras, you know, some of the techie stuff we cannot source in Belize, but I think that we are proud that most of that money most of our money is being spent back in Belize. And I don't have the graph here, but she also highlighted, to my shock, that it's mostly being spent on people, because I thought fuel was our biggest cost all these years, but it's actually people. Oh, great. So we want to just highlight some of our most significant private donors, because that really helps us when some of our budgets you can't move things around or you have unexpected expenses. So the Oak Foundation, this is in Belize dollars, gave us 31,000 this year. The moorings, this is from last October, in-kind valued at 12,000. That's with the catamaran charters. We had a private donor, 20,000 Belize, again, 2 to 1 US. And Belize Sailing Charter really kicked in this year with three trips with the in-kind valued at over 59,000, because we pay for the fuel and the food and the crew, but we don't pay what tourists pay. And it makes our life so much easier on our extended field trips to have that catamaran where we can charge up everything and have our like floating field station for our remote locations. There they are. There's our 3 different trips, one to northern Belize in May, the spawning trip in Saltwater Key in August, and then most recently in Turnef in October. So thank you, Belize Sailing Vacations, for sure. Let's see. So what's going on with Strong Coast, which is the top line? I have it in italics because those are numbers from last year that we still need to update for years 4 and 5. Summit Foundation is discretionary funding they gave us. Now I'm in US dollars. Sorry for switching currency. Belize Fund, we're in year 3 now. So this is what allowed us to hire people with salaries and things. Oak Foundation, I may have highlighted already, but they gave us another discretionary grant. And the McPike Zima Foundation is new to us. This is our 2nd year of their privately donated funds, and that really helps us with our salary and discretionary funds. So big shout out to them as well. Now I finally am getting to what I promised. What is CORDAP? Coral Research and Development Accelerator Program. So if I understand it correctly, it started in 2022 or quite before, and it's the G20 countries that have promised to put so much millions of dollars specifically to coral restoration efforts. And so we were awarded this in 2023, but we didn't actually get started until this year. And project title is called Building the Tools for Scientific Population Management of Critically Endangered Coral Species in Belize as a model for other restoration programs. And I have another slide that will show where the partners are, and this is a three-year grant. And then we're still just getting news about the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center grant, which may or may not be coming on board next year with a lot more training and opportunities, and hopefully the mangrove coloring book. So there's the Cord app. I'm almost done. And I just wanted to share the partner. So BICA on the left-hand side is the Bay Islands Conservation Association, the oldest NGO in the Honduras Bay Islands. And so this project, whilst they're on all three islands, will be focused on Roatan. Then we have the Smithsonian, Boston University, and then I'm not sure how to say it, the Oldenburg, that is Dr. Ileana Baums, who is a geneticist, a coral geneticist from Germany, and that's the name of her organization in Germany, University of Miami. And then the other ones, Species 360 and Smithsonian, are a little different. They're bringing to the table software created to manage endangered species populations in captive settings. So like zoos and aquariums, and now botanical gardens even. So when you have, only so many of this species left, they have been over 40 years developing different software, is more of like a stud book process, like who to breed with where and how to move them around, but it doesn't directly apply to corals or in the wild. And so we're making a stab in the dark here, hoping that we can start taking some steps to see if we can create some tools that make sense for managing wild coral populations with their expertise involved. And then our local board is Dale Godfrey, Tara Westby, Martha Ely, David Vernon, and myself. Maybe that's it. Wait, no, there was more. Almost done. Lessons learned. Post 2023 and 24, more diversity is better. Well, mostly the donor corals are holding the patterns with some exceptions, as I mentioned. I put in red because we're always worried about political will, because at the end of the day, it's the fossil fuels and the emissions that are causing the effects that we're all seeing now. And there's not much in Belize we can do about that. And we just keep hoping that it's gonna get better, but we gotta work with what we have. And so our future plans, I would love to discuss with you guys when you all have a drink and get some snacks, and informally we can discuss what you think we should be doing if we're not doing it. But we're pretty much sticking to our plan, except for not in as many places as before. With that, I guess I will say if there's any questions on the Zoom, because I think we went just a little bit, just at an hour. So on the Zoom, we could field some questions. And I just want to say thanks to everyone online and everyone in the room that's been patient with us. And we would love your input for how to do this better, because every year we kind of fail with our hybrid and the sunlight and what venue are we going to use and how do we include folks not here and still have it be an in-person thing. So you don't have to answer no, but it's a struggle for us each year to have the hybrid meetings.
Yeah,
And
but
with that, I think we
great
should
job,
end.
Lisa.
What?
Great job.
Thanks, Les, for joining. I'm gonna end the Zoom. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. Oh, yes, there was quite a few people online.
Thank you, Lisa. Great
Wonderful job.
job.
I think Patricia